know it's pathetic. I know it's pathetic, but I didn't feel like starting all over again and doing all that same stuff again. So I'm going to put a second little one up. All right, Chapter 8 study guide. I gave the intro to the topic earlier, and now we're just going to start with the answers. Number 1, longitudinal studies. So we talked about basic research methods back in Chapter 1, and those were basic methods. We talked about naturalistic observation, case study, survey, correlational method, experimental method, but there are other kinds of research methods, other ways to answer questions, and it just depends sometimes on the question you're asking as to, I'm going to turn that light off, as to what way you need to use to go about answering it. That's better. It's really bright. Now I'm orange. Oh well, give me some color. So we got longitudinal and cross-sectional. Those are special ways to answer the questions that we have about developmental. We want to know how people change over time. And it could be years over time. It could be weeks. We just want to know what kind of changes are going on. So we have to test the same people over and over again. That makes sense, right? To track them. We have to track these changes. One way is to test the same people over and over again, and that's the longitudinal method. We study the same group of subjects, remember that's the people or animals we're studying, over time. Now, the time frame can be a week, 2 days, a year, 10 years, 70 years. There's no time on it. Because normally what we do when we test a group is we bring them in, we do whatever, and then we let them go. And we never see them again. But if we bring them back and test them again on the same thing, on the same topic, it is called longitudinal. We just need to bring them back one more time. It's called longitudinal. We test the same group for the same topic more than once. It's longitudinal. We could bring them back every year for their entire life. We have a big famous study called Berkeley Longitudinal Study. It studied men from birth until they died. It was like a 70-some year study. It was long. So you could do that. And we'll talk in developmental more about that. It's very interesting. It's hard to just stop it there because there's some major problems with bringing people back again and again, but there's no question for it, so I don't want to waste your time. Cross-sectional, still in question number 1. Cross-sectional is another method because longitudinal can take a long time. If you want to know how people change over 10 years, you have to wait 10 years to test them again to know how they changed. But we don't want to wait that long. It's one of the problems. So instead, we can do a cross-sectional. Now, cross-sectional is 2 separate groups of people. They're not the same people. We're not testing the same people again. Okay, these 2 groups, one group is one age and the other group is a different age. And we're comparing them on whatever topic we're interested in studying. So if we want to know how are 20-year-olds different than 40-year-olds, with a longitudinal study, we have to test them at 20, then wait 20 years and test them at 40. With cross-sectional method, we take a cross-section of current life. We can get a group of 20-year-olds and a group of 40-year-olds and test them today. And we can find out in one day. Of course, there's problems with that. It's 2 different groups of people. Could be talking about 2 different generations because these people grew up in a different time in history. Think about this experience right now with this virus. The impression it's making on people is different depending on the age they are. If you're a baby right now, you have no clue. If you're a teenager and this is your prom, it's a big deal. If you are in your 30s and 40s and you can't work and your income goes down, that's a big deal. If you're in your 60s and 70s and you're scared for your life, that's a big deal. Everybody has a different experience with this current situation, and that can influence how they respond to research, to our questions, to what we're trying to find out. You may have very old family members. I do. I have a 95-year-old grandma. These people were children during the Great Depression. They had lasting effects from that time in life that adults at that time did not carry with them. If you were a kid during the Great Depression, it impacted you the rest of your life. Maybe you notice that people at this age group are very frugal. They save everything. They're very conservative. They don't like to spend a lot of money. It's because they learned a very strong lesson during that time in development that, things are scarce and you need to conserve. If you were an adult at that time, then you knew what was going on and why it was happening. And when things got better, you knew that everything was okay again. But because you weren't in your learning years, but the kids were. So the impact is different depending on your age. All right. Number 2, cohort effect. That's just what we were saying. A cohort is a group of people born around the same time in history. It's like a generation. A generation is 20 years, and we usually think of a cohort as 10. So it's the same thing, just a tighter group, a smaller group of people. So these people born around the same 10 years are going through life together. When 9/11 hit, they were all around the same age, so it probably impacted them all around in the same way. We do name generations. We don't name cohorts, but we do name generations. So you've heard about millennials, Generation X, baby boomers, silent generation. So these are the names that we give them based on kind of like the theme of their life. And that has to do with what was going on in history during their years. So how can a cohort affect research? Again, we've just said, when we look at the difference between 20-year-olds and 40-year-olds, any differences we find might be due to the time in which they grew up, not the time between the 20 and 40 years of age. Like what's going on in society is probably, very important. That's a problem you get when you do a cross-sectional study. You're comparing 2 different cohorts, potentially. Now you compare 15 and 16-year-olds and they're in the same cohort, but you could be comparing 20s and 40-year-olds and they're totally different cohorts. They're different generations. So any differences you find might not be due to aging 20 years from 20 to 40, but instead from the life experience that 40-year-old had as a kid, as a teenager, as a 20-year-old, and that 20-year-old had experience having as a kid, as a teenager, as a 20-year-old. Technology is a really easy one to think about as an example. So you gotta be careful when you look at research study comparing different ages that some of that could be cohort effect and not anything else. So number 3, okay. So the rest of this chapter, we are going to go in chronological order. We will start with babies and children and we lump them together. It's a big age group. And in developmental, it takes us weeks to get through that age group, but we're going to put them together pretty fast. We'll look a little bit about their biological changes, a little bit about their cognitive changes, and a little bit about their emotional changes. Then we move on to teenagers, and we do the same 3 topics there. Early adults, middle-aged adults, late adults. Okay, so we're moving through chronologically. Question number 3, cephalocaudal pattern. And the proximo-distal pattern. I crammed a lot of things into one question tonight. It was a lot to cover. This is referring to the growth, the physical stuff, and the growth pattern of babies. Babies don't grow in random ways. You won't see one baby with a big hand that grew fast, and another one has a big foot that grew fast, another one has a big head. We all grow in a patterned way, predictable. And the cephalocaudal pattern is top down. So things on top of our body grew first, got bigger first, developed first, even in utero, compared to things on the bottom of our body. When a baby comes out, its head is like 1/3 of its entire body. By the time you're an adult, it's 1/8. Our head does grow. It doesn't come out this big. But proportionately, it shrinks compared to the rest of your body. It changes proportion. But in the beginning, we're all head. That's why we try to come out head first. If the head can fit, everything else can because it's smaller. Proximodistal, so cephalocaudal means head to tail, cepha, head, caudal, tail. And then proximodistal is about distance, kind of weird. Proxy's close, distal's far away. So another pattern that we show in our growth rate is that we grow from the inside out. So we start as it looks like a comma. We have a brain and a spinal cord in the middle. And then we grow out arms from there, then hands, then fingers. So inner part, brain, spinal cords first, and then we grow out all these other things. So the pinky toenail on the hand or the foot, probably the foot is like the smallest thing on a baby because it's at the bottom and it's on the outside, as far out as you can get. Number 4, why are we born with reflexes? It helps us survive. we don't know much when we come out, and if we had to learn every single thing, we might not make it. Suck, swallow, breathe is a reflex that we kind of need to know when we come out. To blink, to cough, to sneeze. These are all reflexes that we need to survive. Now, some of them we don't need to survive, like it doesn't seem to be anyway. If you stroke a baby's hand, they'll grab onto it and they cannot let go. It's not their choice. They just a reflex. What most people don't know is if you rub the back of their hand, another reflex is to open it. So, anyway, born with reflexes to help us stay alive, and also becomes the basis for learning in the future. We progress in a lot of reflexes from automatic, uncontrolled behavior to controlled behavior, such as gripping. We don't automatically grip now without our control. We choose when to grip on something. Number 5, can babies hear things? Newborns, firstborn. Newborn is 0 to 1 month. Can they hear? Yep. Can they see? Question number 5. Yep. Now, they don't hear as well as we do, and they don't see as well as we do. And that's kind of funny because we got to know that. We get closer to them when we talk. We talk like this, and it makes our voice louder. And yes, they can see, but they're not very good at seeing yet. It's one of the last senses to mature. It's also one of the first senses to go in middle adulthood. Number 6, can newborns smell and taste? Yep, sure can, and they like sugar. They don't like salt for a while, not until about 4 months. They like sugar. Can they smell? Yep, you put a rotten egg under their nose and ooh, they will look away. Now my numbers on my study guide are kind of screwy. So I have 7 as blank. Let me look and see if I can find another one and see what 7 is. Maybe just got misnumbered. Okay, I'll do this one. Number 7, egocentricity in childhood. So that was some physical stuff. Now we're doing some cognitive stuff. And this is about little kids, not babies. Little kids are funny as heck. Like 2 to 6 year olds are hilarious. But they're also exhausting. And one of the things that makes them tiring for adults is that they're very egocentric. They only think about themselves. They cannot take someone else's point of view. Makes sense, right? They don't understand the world enough. Their needs are number 1. They want what they want, regardless of your condition or your situation. They're going to want what they want. Another way it takes form, which is really cute, is like hide and seek. All they do is cover their eyes. They might hide like this and then can't believe that you found them. Because if they can't see you, you can't see them. So they don't hide very well. It's adorable. Usually I'll show some pictures of it online. It's funny. If they're talking on the phone, like they dress up for Halloween and they're talking to Grandma, and they're like, Grandma, guess who this is? It is not fair that Grandma knows who they are. They think they're tricking Grandma because they're dressed up. What they don't realize is Grandma only hears their voice, and they didn't disguise their voice. So it's not being able to see someone else's perspective. Number 8, object permanence is back to babies again, jumping around a little bit, but it's cognitive, and babies and children are in the same category for us right now. Object permanence is the understanding that things exist even if they can't see them. We have a saying, it's like taking candy from a baby. That means it's easy to take. They don't, out of sight, out of mind, right? You take it, they don't know any different. Up to about 6 months. After that, they start to go, hey, I think I had something and I want it. They get upset when Mom leaves the room now because they know Mom still exists and they want her. So that's object permanence. The objects are permanent even if they can't see them. Makes sense. Number 9. What is temperament? It's a characteristic way of responding. So now we're into socio-emotional stuff for babies and children. And this goes into adulthood too. I mean, we all have a temperament. We're kind of born with it. Your characteristic way of emotionally and behaviorally responding to situations. That's number 10. A couple different kinds of temperament. Some of us are happy, generally pretty happy. We adapt to change. We get into routines easily, which is very helpful as a baby. We're called easy, and that's the majority of us. The majority of us have an easy temperament, thank goodness. Yes. But then we've got some that are difficult. And difficult temperament in a child or an adult, they're just generally cranky, they're generally unhappy, easily upset, easily angered. As babies, they cry a lot. They don't like changes in their routine. So it's just kind of difficult to deal with. Then we have slow them to warm up. It's just what it sounds like. These kids are adults. They're just hesitant. Doesn't mean they're shy, but they just take a while to get used to a new situation. And so they're going to be cautious. They're going to hold back until they really get to know you. Then when they get to know you, they're going to feel comfortable and be fine. If you push them too quickly, they're going to be cranky. So they will look difficult if you push them too fast. You just need to give them time, their warm-up situation, and then they'll be cool. And they have low activity level. They're just not very active, busy kids. Low emotions, not strong emotions. Like the easy is pretty happy, the difficult is pretty cranky, and slow to warm up is kind of neutral. Number 11, more of the emotional stuff with babies. And it lasts your whole life. We talk about attachment in adulthood too, how it affects your love relationships. But for right now, the babies, attachment is the Barney song. You guys know the Barney song. I love you, you love me, we're a happy family with a great big hug and a kiss from me to you. Won't you say you love me too? That was your generation, right? So attachment is a close, reciprocal relationship with someone. Reciprocal means goes both ways. I love you, you love me. Not I love you and you sit there because you're a stuffed animal. Or I love you and you abuse me or neglect me. Nope. It has to be a two-way street for this attachment to occur. And it seems to be very important for it to happen because if it doesn't, we can have long-term, permanent consequences. They had a famous study because they thought that the reason babies are attached to their moms was because of the food mom gives them that keeps them alive. But they did a famous study with Harlow's monkeys, and they took these baby monkeys away from their mom and raised them with a cage with two different kind of mommy monkeys, fake. One was had cloth covering it, like a carpet, and the other one was chicken wire rolled up, but it had a bottle, so they gave him food. They thought for sure that the baby monkey would spend all its time on the food one. The food one is the one keeping it alive and providing an immediate, gratification. But what they found was the baby spent all the time on the fuzzy mom. Jumped over to eat off the other one, but then came back and stayed to the fuzzy mom. When it was scared, it went to the fuzzy mom. So that made us think, well, maybe it's comfort somehow. It's more than just food and biological needs. There's something more going on. So now we think it's much more complicated cause for attachment. It's I love you and you love me back, not just you give me food when I'm hungry. I'm looking at our schedule and make sure. I think we do chapter 15 in one day. Get to our class. Or chapter 8 in one day. I think we changed it. I just don't want to. I need to know whether to put it all in one day or not. Oh, that's not what I wanted. I want the hybrid daily schedule. There we go. Now we got 2 days, so I can do a half video today and a half video next time. That's good. Break it up because this is a long study guide. It can take forever. All right. That's not the one I want to do. Let's do this one. Okay. So that was 11, number 11. Let's do... Maybe we should stop here. Let's stop here because we're done with kids. And then next time we'll have teenagers. I don't want to get started in teenagers and have to quit. So let's do teenagers next time. And then the adult stuff. Sounds good. So we stopped at number 11.